wherever you're at. Hi, it's Diane. It's good to see you. I'm here today to tell you another story. Today, I'd like to tell you the story of the Good Samaritan. This is a parable that's found in Luke, and it's in chapter 10, and it begins with 25. When Jesus was in a crowd of people one day, and he was talking, and this one guy was an attorney, and he thinks he's smart alecky, kind of a stinker guy, and he goes, "Hey, Jesus, what do I have to do to inherit eternal life?" Well, Jesus looked at him and he says, "Well, what's the law say? What does our law say? What's the Torah say? What's written? How do you read it?" And the man said, "Well, you should love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your strength and mind, and thy neighbor as yourself," he said. And Jesus said, "Yeah, that's right." But then the guy, being a little smart aleck, he said, "Yeah, well, who's your neighbor? Tell me, Jesus, exactly who is your neighbor?" Because, they had a lot of laws about people they didn't like, and people they didn't touch, and people they didn't want to interact with. So, he was just kind of really being a stinker about it. But Jesus looked at him and he said, "Let me tell you the story." So, this one day, there was a guy, and he was walking along, and, he went down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he was walking, and all of a sudden, a gang of thieves and ruffians, this gang jumped out at him, and they took him, and they beat him up. They robbed him. They took all of his money, all of his clothes. They left him naked and beaten, left for dead in a ditch. So, this poor guy is unconscious in a ditch. He's naked. He's in a strange land. And, there he is laying there. And, the first thing that happened was this guy came along that was a priest. So we just call him preacher. Well, there's this preacher come down the road, and he saw that naked guy laying in the ditch, and he's all beat up and banged up, and he might be dead. And he said, "I'm not getting involved with this. I don't have a dog in this. I don't know that man, and he might not really be dead. Maybe he's pretending to be dead. He'll jump up and he'll hurt me. But you know what? Okay, that's it. I'm going to be safe, and I'm just going on. I'll just pretend like I didn't see him." And he crossed the other side of the street, and he went on up the road and left that man, that preacher, that priest. They just walked right on up the road, and they left that poor fella in the ditch. Well, so then in a few minutes, after a little bit, here came this guy who was a Levite. Well, so he was like the worship leader. He was like the head of the symphony. He was really important. And so he comes along, and he looks over there, and, he led the choir at church and everything. But he said, "I'm not messing with that. That guy looks, I'm not looking at that." And so, he just turned his head and got to the other side of the street and just went on down the street. And then he just left that fellow laying there in the ditch. So then in a little while longer, this guy came along, and he was from Samaria. He was from say Syria. He was a foreigner. He was not from their country. He was not of their religion. He was of a bunch of people that they didn't really, they kind of looked down on. They didn't like him too much. But this guy comes along, and he sees this fella beat up in the ditch naked. And he feels so sorry for him that he runs over there to see, and he goes, "Fella, are you alive?" And the guy's alive. And he goes, "Oh, let me help you." And he goes back to his horse, and he gets his saddle open, and he opens up, and he gets some water, and he gets some bandages, and he goes over, and he tries to clean this fella up, but he sees that he's hurt really bad. So he takes the man, and he puts him on his horse, and he carries him to the nearest hotel. And he takes him in there, and he goes, "Look, this guy's all beat up, and I need him to stay here at your hotel because I got to go on business. But I'm going to leave him here, and I'm going to give you some money, take care of him, and then whatever debts he has, when I come back through, I'll pay them. But you get him a doctor, and you feed him, and you take care of him, and I'll be back." And so he did, and the guy at the hotel did exactly that thing. He got the doctor, And they fed him and they took care of him. And he was feeling so much better. When the guy came back, he paid for the doctor and everything. And the man was so grateful because he was left for dead and dying. And he was picked up and loved by somebody he didn't even know. So Jesus looked at this lawyer fella and he said, now you tell me, who is your neighbor? Everybody is your neighbor. Love your neighbor as yourself. Right? Right? So he said, look, here's the deal. You just go on and do the same thing. If you see someone in trouble, help them. It doesn't matter if they go to your church. It doesn't matter if they belong to your religion. It doesn't matter if they're even from the same country. If you see your neighbor is hurting, if you see a need, then take time to answer it. That's what Jesus is saying. Be everybody's neighbor. That's what he was talking about. We are the church. You and me and Jesus. Together, we can make this world a better place if only we will love our neighbor as ourselves. Remember the story of the Good Samaritan. Have a wonderful